Start the recording.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so calling the meeting to order. Roll call. Barbara,
Here.
Robert,
Yep.
Jeff,
Present.
Margie, present.
And Lars is excused. He is traveling this week.
Right, right. Okay. Approval of minutes.
So
So
we would
moved.
normally take these one at a time in case there are any, although I guess if there are no comments on them, you can make a motion to approve both sets, but if there are any
Yeah, any comments?
substantive changes, easier to do it separately.
Okay, anybody have any comments or changes for individual items?
Not I.
I'd like to move to accept both meetings minutes as shown.
Okay, any comments? All right, all in favor? Aye.
I.
Aye. Well, any opposed? All right, minutes are accepted. And then reading the script. Is this the good? Here comes the script. Important notice regarding city meetings. This meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with the state of California executive orders regarding COVID-19 pandemic. Zoom and YouTube are being utilized for this meeting. In case of technical issues, meetings will be uploaded to the city website as soon as possible after this meeting. We will be conducting today's meeting in a virtual setting using Zoom. Public Arts Committee members and staff are participating from remote locations, practicing appropriate social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting by use of Zoom as noted on the city's website and noted on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak to the PAC may do so during public comment or may comment on agenda items during the discussion of each item and must be logged into Zoom. YouTube is a viewing only format. Anyone using abusive, vulgar, offensive, threatening, or harassing language, personal attacks of any kind, or offensive terms that target specific individuals or groups will be muted and removed from the meeting. Please do not abuse this new way to provide public comment. Okay. Comments from the public regarding items not on the agenda. We have no public at this meeting, other public.
Correct. I did
right?
receive one email late yesterday. I think that was a comment, and I will just forward that to the committee. It's for an item not on the agenda. It's regarding the Black Lives Matter Plaza mural, and I will forward that to the group.
Thank you. Okay, regular agenda. Statements of conflict of interest. Any statements of conflict of interest? Okay. Regular agenda, Ives Park Sculpture Garden. Number 1, signage. Carrie, can you give us a quick update on where we are with the signage?
Sure, we have 2 pieces of signage. The art signage I did meet with Nate Sutton from Public Works out there to look at placement of those. There are a couple that are actually sort of would run into the base if they're put of the sculptures, like the medallion can't be put in that sort of on the top front right corner without running into the sculptures. So I did, since Jeff and Lars are the 2 subcommittee members working on the signage part of it, I did email that. And Jeff, thank you for your reply on that. We can also discuss that as a group, and I have the photos if you'd like to discuss it. For the other, the larger entry signage, I did get the building department sign off on the low, as long as it's a 2-post sign, the lower sign at the west side. And for the sign at the sort of next to Zephyr on High Street, Robert, thank you. Brent had talked to the Sebastopol Art Center. Thank you very much, Robert, for moving that forward.
Sure.
They and I spoke with Uniglass as a representative of the art center, and she is fully in support of moving that sign from one side to the other, and potentially placing our sign for the community sculpture garden on the front side. However, she noted we do need to contact the county. So I actually sent them an email, 2-3 weeks ago. I have not heard back from them, so I need to contact them. But Robert, I did include, I don't know if I included you on that email. I know I included Una because she was very happy to advocate for the change in signage as may be needed. But I did include the background of why the sign was put there in the first place, and that it's more appropriate to be facing the vehicle. So thank you, Robert, for that background on that.
Sure. And the other part of my conversation with Una was about a security camera, and that was a couple of weeks ago, and she hasn't gotten back to me, and I just now sent her another email asking if she had any thoughts about that.
Thank you.
And then for the actual signs, once those are approved, I did talk with Dante from Public Works Superintendent about the type of sign. And I actually picked up the signs, the smaller signs from DNS Awards in Santa Rosa in person and talked with them. They cannot do signage that large. And as well, the stainless steel would be very prohibitively expensive, it sounds like. So I talked with Dante, and we can use his sign shop that he uses for sort of, normal street signs and things like that around town and other signs. And it sounds like they'll be able to do, the custom square sign on some sort of aluminum or some sort of metal with a clear coat. So it'll look the same, even though it won't be stainless steel. And so that is, once we get the okay from the county, we'll be able to be able to finalize the artwork for that and get that going.
Do we have anything, any hard evidence of what the code is on how far the sign can stick out past the post? Lars had suggested he thought it was 3 inches, but we should know before we specify the width of the sign.
I did not get that from the building department, but I can follow up with them on that.
Okay.
Because that would be the
using
ADA.
that, the other sign is 36 inches high, and using the 3 inches past the post, we could have a sign 36 by 42 and just fit our artwork to those proportions. If it can stick out further past the posts, all the better for us.
All right, I'm jotting that down. Thank you, Robert.
Okay, so we need to okay a different location for the sign on the Zephyr sculpture. Is that correct?
So I started off working with Jeff and Lars directly as that signage group, but I mean, it's fine with me if the whole committee wants to discuss it, or if I don't know.
I just mean to
want to do that between the assignments and the.
No, that's fine. I just
And the
mean
meeting time.
in terms of moving it forward, how can we get that it's fine for the subcommittee to do it, just to get it okayed so it can be installed.
Jeff, do you
It
want
is-
to take the lead with what, since you've already reviewed it, and I can pull up the pictures if you want?
Well, I just wanted to comment on that. So I'm fine with the whole committee discussing it too, but I think one of our prerogatives in having the subcommittees, because of the volume of work we're kind of faced with, was to try to decrease or lessen how much time we're all spending in our single monthly meetings. So I just want to put that out there before we dive into that as a whole committee and go into it. That could bite out quite a bit of today's meeting.
No, so my question was, what needs to be done at the subcommittee level to approve it and move it forward?
I think I'd like to hear from Lars, but I think otherwise, if he agrees with Jeff, then we'll be able to move forward with it immediately. It doesn't need to come back to this committee because this committee has empowered that group to deal with all the minor signage logistics.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, and then what is your estimate, Carrie, in terms of the entry signs, when we might have them available and installed?
I think it's a couple of weeks for Dante to order it once we have the signage. They have the city's logo and other things, so it shouldn't be too difficult to, I know with DNS awards, it took me like 1 or 2 days to finalize the actual, text kind of look of it. But it, like I said, it depends upon getting a yes from the county.
So we don't, the committee as a whole does not need to do anything further for that?
Correct. I think that would be just working with Jeff and Lars if there's any
Great.
questions about details.
Excellent, thank you. Any other discussion or information on signage? And we're hoping to have the signage up at least by the opening. I don't know how it's affected people's submissions or not, but I guess we'll just get it as soon as we can, which is wonderful. Thank you for your work on that, Carrie, and Jeff and Lars.
And Robert.
Okay.
So then Robert for talking to the
Robert,
Art Center.
yes. Oh, yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Robert.
Divide and conquer in that one.
That was very, very helpful. Thank you. Okay, moving on, submissions. Carrie, any submissions yet?
We have not gotten any submissions, and Margaret, looked like you had gotten a question from Brianna, who had applied in the previous round. I think I saw an email from you responding to her.
Oh, I don't think that wasn't about submissions for this one.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, no, but no, we have not received any either comments or submissions.
Okay.
And on that, I did, I sit on a.
Oh, Brianna, I'm sorry.
countywide-
I'm sorry. I was conflating that with Beth. So yes, I did. And yes, Brianna asked me, I'm sorry, Carrie. Brianna did ask me, she hadn't heard about the call at all. I thought she was on our list because she's one of the sculptors. So she was going to let her, anyone she knew, know about it.
Great. Great.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. I was just noting that a couple of things. I do sit on a Sonoma County Parks group that meets every couple of weeks or so. And so at the meeting yesterday, I did ask them about, or on Monday, I let them know that we had a sculpture caller because some of them have a little bit of overlap, sculpture in their parks too. And one, I think both Healdsburg, Cloverdale, and one other town, or the county actually mentioned the I think it's the Voigt Foundation.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you know about that, but there are a number of cities that are actually working with them to get sculpture placed in parks. Barbara, do you know?
I do. I used to work with them until about 2 years ago, actually. So I do know Judy Voigt well, and I can follow up with any of that. They were not involved with the Cloverdale Sculpture Trail per se, but the Foss Creek Walk in Healdsburg is all of their submissions. It's quite beautiful, and they are very involved with the percentage for the arts with the city of Healdsburg, making certain that art is placed in developments, etc. I have lost contact with them, but I'd be happy to reconnect and see if what information they may have that would be of value to us.
Okay, and I guess, I don't know how it fits into the current call we have. A couple of options, because the deadline is coming up. One is that we could extend the call, or you could close it, and then this group can talk about other ways of potentially filling those. And that's where that kind of might fit in, to have to work with them to get one or two or three pieces.
And to work with the folks in Cloverdale, because they've been very active in securing 3D sculptures for that trail.
Right.
I'd be happy to follow up with that too.
I have a question about, mildly disappointing to me anyway, that we haven't received any submissions. Do we know definitely that the call has been received? I mean, has there been any kind of contact in any way by the city or anyone else for that matter, to know that for sure these people are reading it or they're receiving it?
I communicated with Catherine at the Art Center, and she said she would send a second mailing out. That was about a week ago.
And I know we've had it in the city newsletter a number of times as well, the e-newsletter that goes out.
And what about just targeting very specifically the Sculpture Jam artists from the past as well as currently? We could do that through the Art Center too, but to give them their own mailing, because a lot of them are connected with other artists in the community, other sculptors.
Yeah, and I had contacted Beth Hartman, some time ago about the upcoming new call, the second call, in regard to the polar bear, for example. Just a little surprised there hasn't been any response from them about potentially submitting that as a piece.
Could you ask her again? Just get back in touch with her on that.
I can, and I will.
And I know, Barbara, you were in touch with Noah, and then didn't hear back from him.
No, I did not. Nor I guess Carrie didn't either.
No, and I've been monitoring Rebecca's email as well, to make sure that, since she was listed for the original call.
I'll try again.
Yeah.
I want to echo Jeff's concern about the inactivity in submitting. I'm wondering what the problem is. I think that if we could ask a couple of the artists, actually, is there something that they perceive could be getting in the way? I'm wondering if it's the time of the duration of the installation. Excuse me. In other words, going to a lot of trouble designing, executing, installing, etc., and then there being a specific time that it's to be viewed, and that might, I'm just kind of brainstorming, but if I were an artist, that would be of concern to me. If I were a sculptor,
I
You
know.
would want it to be a longer length.
Mhm.
Is that, yeah.
That's a lot. It's a lot of work for everybody in the city. I mean, receiving the submissions, etc.
Is it currently 1 year?
Yeah, that was initially Warren's idea, was to do a one-year show. Other options that were possible were to just, have the installation and have them there as
With no time time frame?
either with no time,
Time.
or we could work with individual artists, how
Mhm.
long they would like it there. I know Beth sent me a note, and she was wondering about getting paid, paying for sculptures, and that's not really how it was envisioned. And the Sculpture Jam, there's never been any payment, as far as I know, for those around town previously. So I know, money would always be nice, but that's kind of not our, where we pay for things is in the commissioned. This is this idea was for the uncommissioned art. And there was no juring fee. And then,
Yeah,
see.
and Margie, I do
Yeah.
know there were some comments on Facebook about that as well.
Mhm.
So that certainly is a factor, and yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it certainly, I believe it would be an allowed use of the public art fund because it does support public art. And it certainly wouldn't need to be as much as, a normal permanent commissioned art like the McGinnis piece.
mhm.
A stipend.
Right, exactly, more of a
As an
stipend,
incentive.
exactly.
So if we wanted to discuss that, I don't know how we would insert it at this point, but we could. They're in the history of the PAC, there was a lot of resistance to spending money for anything but commissioned sculptures. But this is a new PAC, new members, and certainly we can discuss and possibly include that. The other thing is, I recall there was some confusion, even though we tried very hard to make it clear about whether people would have to pay for insurance and so on. And how
Right,
to-
and the way we handled this was that we just have them sign a volunteer waiver, and then it's, there's no insurance required by the city, it's just part of a volunteer effort, basically. I don't know if we were to offer stipends, if that would still be possible, because then there's a monetary exchange. That would be something I would need to check with the city attorney on.
Okay.
That may be considered not a donation, but I think a stipend is different than paying for services.
Right, because it's almost more of a, I mean, if it's a rental fee, but it's, support for the artist. I mean, when we do our commit, and Barbara and Robert, you haven't been here, and Jeff as well, actually, when we've done a formal call for a commission piece. But what the process we have used, which I think is pretty common, is we do the call, and then this group selects 3 or 4 finalists. Those finalists receive a stipend to put together maquettes and present at a community meeting. And I think, and then the finalist is selected, or the final piece is selected from there.
That's the norm, and it's a good process. It would be nice to create a process for this one. Since it is.
Those calls I think have gotten somewhere in the range of, well, I don't know about the NEDCON, although obviously it was, as a member of public at that time, because I didn't work for the city, I saw them and commented on them, the finalists at least. And so that was, it is a nice process. For the library sculpture, I think we got 25 or 30 submissions for that. So
Yeah, there were a lot of submissions at the time of
it was a good turnout.
when Ned's was originally selected. That was the first one.
Great, yeah.
Do you remember what the stipend was for those that submitted?
I believe it has been $1,000 in the past.
Yes.
And, with inflation, I don't know if that changes for future calls when they put that together, but that's what it was for 2018 was, and the NEDCON before that, which I think was 2015.
For the current call, we can discuss whether we want to extend the time. Another idea also I was thinking about is just resending to everyone. I know when I teach courses, and you probably have that experience too, there's notification about the course periodically leading up to it. It's not just a one notification. So we could resend. We could clarify about the insurance. And we can, I don't know what, at this point, if we could offer stipend or addition, now. New element. So what do people think about all that?
I think it's worth taking your idea, Margie, and resending the CFA. I agree with you about, people getting busy, getting distracted, or not necessarily seeing particular emails at a particular time. So I think it would be worthy to resend it and or republicize it in more than one way.
I agree. I think it's a good idea, and it keeps us in people's, on their radar. I also would advocate the Sculpture Jam artists being more actively included so that they could spread the word. And if there's another group of sculptors that have their own methods of communicating, because that's probably a lot of where the action is to reach the sculpture community.
One of
I
the
had down in my
things-
list the Jim Wheaton's Chimera,
Oh, Chimera, yes.
and also our local art gallery.
Oh, downtown, the Sebastopol Art Gallery.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how much sculpture they have, but it's all worthwhile contacting. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So those were the two that I had down.
Okay. Well, I
And
know
then-
them in Chimera. I can contact them too.
Okay.
I do have one suggestion. I know I think we purposely did not send it to Ned Kahn and Michael McGinnis previously, or Patrick Amio, because they're professional artists and this was seen as a community sculpture garden. But like Michael McGinnis teaches at Sonoma
Right.
State University, and I would imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, thank you. But he teaches sculpture, so he certainly has students who might be interested in. And I mean, if they did want to have something in the sculpture garden, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. If we're contacting individual artists in particular, we know those local artists
Mhm.
all live in our community, and so I would suggest reaching out to them because they probably talk with a lot of. I mean, I know Patrick Amio has a sculpture kind of art studio on the south side of town as well, so he will know other folks as well.
I agree. I wouldn't deny them information at any time. They know a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And
We
there's
have-
also foundries.
Excuse me, Margie, just 1
I'm
minute.
sorry. Go ahead, sure.
Do they have, do you have contacts for them specifically, Carrie?
I do, yes,
Okay.
actually, and I do from Patrick because I've talked with him about other
Okay.
stuff. So
Can we leave that up to you, or I'll be happy to do it if you have a full plate.
I can do it with
Okay. I think that's a great idea to contact them. They're kind of like the first in line.
And Bronze Plus sounds like a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And Carrie, I have a request. Would you can you send the PAC members the contact list? I think it would help me, maybe us, to actually see that list so we can kind of digest that a little bit, and maybe it'll help us brainstorm if there might be some additional people we can send along to you.
Yeah, thank you.
sure, yeah. And I
And
know
also-
I wasn't the person who put that together originally, but I will look for that.
Oh, I got a copy of that, and I think
Margie probably has the latest
Oh, good.
copy.
I had a contact list that I'd submitted to you in the city,
Right.
but I don't know if that's like the official list anymore. That's why I'm bringing that up.
Yeah, the list that I have, which I can find and send if I'm allowed now to send.
Yes, please. Yeah.
It was kind of where the city's contacts more than the things we've been talking about. And also, I was really surprised that Brianna was not contacted. And I want to make sure that the 4 sculptors that we did select are on the list.
Hmm.
Well, this is a good time to look at it and amend it and kind of
Yeah, and it looks like I'm just sorry, I can share my screen here of the PDF I have. It looks like, yeah, certainly Michael McGinnis was emailed.
Mhm.
Beth was from Sculpture Jam.
Yeah, and Sonoma State, the art
Yeah.
center, I remember that was on there too.
Mhm.
Right, so that's both the one, yeah, exactly. So both Santa Rosa Junior College and SSU were covered there. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, again, resending, I think, is a good idea.
And we might add the Sonoma State Art Gallery to that list. Carla?
Margie, can you take notes on the contacts?
Okay, yeah.
Well, you know, when we all get it, perhaps we could amend it with what we can provide and resend it to, I don't know, Margie or Carrie and create a new list
An
with the
amended list.
additions.
Anyone have any contact? Robert, you mentioned Bronze Plus.
Yeah, I don't know the folks, but they moved from the Barlow down to Todd Road.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
that's
and
right
also Carla in the Sonoma State Art Gallery, who certainly knows an awful lot of people.
She's a former student of mine and a friend, so I can contact Carla Stone. I can contact her.
That would
Great.
be good.
Robert,
And add her to the list.
Yeah.
can you contact the Bronze Plus? Would you be willing or no?
Well, I just thought we can look up their address and put them on the.
What's that guy's name? I can't remember his name. That was the,
Neither can I.
but yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. All right. So I will, after our meeting, I will find the list and send it to everyone.
Good.
And then then people could add and send to me or to you, Carrie, or both of us or everybody. What's the?
I think this is fine to send to everybody. This isn't about a decision that's coming before the committee. It's just trying to get a list together.
Okay, so then, so everyone, whoever you want to add, send to everyone. And then Carrie, we see that everyone gets that resend?
Correct, yeah.
And then in the resend, do we want to, one, clarify or emphasize again that, the simplicity of that they don't have to pay, they just have to sign a waiver, they don't have to pay for insurance. And do we want to include a stipend? Do we want to do that at this point?
Well, what's our budget? I don't know how
So
much money we have.
So we don't have anything budgeted for it in this fiscal year. So we would need to go to council for approval on that.
Okay.
Which is, it's possible. It's not possible since there was a council meeting last night and submissions are due the 15th and the next council meeting is the 19th. It's certainly not
Well,
possible with the current schedule.
okay, I think we have two very important things going on here. One is a new list, which I think is going to be really helpful in the future period. And then secondly, the stipend, which would be a procedural thing. And what would we do about the artists who have already been chosen and did not receive a stipend for their involvement?
Well, we can't, since it needs to go to the city council, even if we approved it right now, figured out how much and so on. We need to go to the city council. And as Carrie just said, the next meeting would be on the 19th. Our deadline is on the 15th. So, and then we're thinking of resending to people, of redoing the list in the next few days and resending to people. So it sounds like offering a stipend, unless we change our schedule significantly, wouldn't be for this this round.
Mm.
But anybody have any comments on it's fine.
I mean, I think a stipend is a good idea. I take what Barbara said about the duration. We can rent it from them for 2 years.
That's an idea.
And and pay $500 or $1,000 to rent the sculpture.
I wonder if that would have anything to do with the insurance. But that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a worthy idea too. Because when you think about the price of materials these days, lately, et cetera, and we personally experienced that with some of the recent artists who submitted to the sculpture garden. I'm sure a lot of people are struggling a bit, artists, and a stipend or a rental fee could really help to attract some pieces.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I would probably call it a stipend because that doesn't get into contractual stuff, and I don't think any of us want to train. That will take an immense amount of time and effort from staff and time to go back and forth, and like I said, the potential insurance stuff. The stipend, however, I think is possible.
So
And
Carrie,
something I can talk to our city attorney about.
so once, this is a matter of protocol, I guess, but once we have finished this discussion today and we've made some suggestions, do those go to city council as bona fide recommendations from our committee?
So they would normally need to be agendized, and I think the logistics, sculpture garden logistics, in my mind covers that. I think that's not going to be controversial.
Okay.
Things don't go to council unless they need council approval, and so things like budgetary expenditures do, and we generally do have them approve the actual sculptures that are recommended, whether it's a commission like NedCon or Michael McGinnis, or the selected and recommended sculptures for the community sculpture garden, because it is installation on city property, and they'd like to see what the public art committee is up to and be involved in that. For things like issuing this call the second time, the schedule for that, all that kind of stuff, the fact that we're having an opening ceremony, all of that we're just handling at a staff level. So that does not need to go to council.
Okay, thank you.
So money and selection of artists.
So what I am thinking is we need to decide whether we want to reschedule or not. One idea would be not to reschedule at this point, to resend to in the resend, I can work on the wording, or Jeff or anybody, to reemphasize the simplicity in terms of the waiver and not sculpture, and perhaps to mention not the stipend, because we can't do anything about it and it's no good to offer something at this point, but to mention that we would be open to discussing a longer
A different
display,
time frame.
a longer time frame with the artists that are installed once they're installed. But let's see. My idea is, let's see. Do we get any submissions by the 15th? If we don't, then we do need to reschedule, including the opening ceremony. If we do, we can add, if it's, even if it's 2 sculptures, we could add those and then proceed ahead. Or even, we actually could still do the opening ceremony with the 3 we have, depending on what the group wants to do. So I'd suggest that we make a choice about the schedule at this point, up till the 15th, what we want to do. And then we do have a meeting scheduled for the 20th, which would be to confirm the submissions. So we need to think about how we will work with that as well.
I have a couple of comments. First, just to kind of finish up that discussion we had about a potential stipend and or whether it might go in a rental direction or not. Is that something that we're going to put on the next agenda? Just to kind of finish that up today.
I'd so move.
Well, we have to wait for city council to approve the stipend and the amount, right?
So generally, this group would vote on a recommendation to council. And then council would receive that as a report, generally with someone from this group as a liaison, in case they have questions, and then they would approve that.
So
So,
what number is anybody thinking of?
Well, if we did 500 and we have 8 pedestals, that's $4,000. $4,000 compared to what we usually offer for the commissioned art, which is like about, what was it, 40,
30 to 35,
30 to
30,
35.
35, I think.
So that's what
the
we'd be
last two
looking
have
at
been.
if it's 500. And I think a stipend is a much kind of nicer way to offer something money than to rent, which, you know, is and that involves more complexity as well.
So we're talking that this stipend would be available to those whose pieces are chosen, not just those who have decided to submit applications.
Yes.
Okay, just to clarify.
Yeah, chosen, and then I think this committee would want to also discuss and recommend if that would be retroactive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which,
I had a couple more comments too. In keeping with this, if we're going to kind of discuss this as one whole change, I would recommend extending the application deadline, because I don't think we have much time to. I don't think if we're going to do more outreach, I think that we need the time to do so, and hopefully that will glean a few more people of interest. And so I would extend that, and I would extend the date of the opening ceremony. And one more thing I had mentioned, on the list that we have so far, we're relying, for instance, on someone like Beth Hartman to represent the entire Sculpture Jam group. And I think that once we can, in addition to her being the point person, those others in that group, I think that might help too, because we're relying on one person to get the word out to a whole lot of other people.
There's the other sculpture. The Zephyr is also Sculpture Jam. In fact, that has Sculpture Jam. Those 2 sculptures that showed up, and everyone's name that's on it. Beth put her name on her piece, but they put the Sculpture Jam on their piece.
Oh yeah, and that's great, and I'm glad that they were able to learn about it and submit. But I'm just wondering about the rest of those potential members of certain groups getting the word.
So I've already sent an email to Beth, and in that email, I also asked her if there are other persons that should be contacted in regards to Sculpture Jam and the Polar Bear, for example. So
that's
But we definitely should contact what's his name? The sculptor for Zephyr. Those 2 fellows who showed up.
Jeffrey
Because
Zagel.
Yeah, they definitely should be directly. Well, I just want to say that Sculpture Jam, they've never received funds from the city for any of the work they've done in the past. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it in the future, just perspective.
Wasn't that a Sebastopol Center for the Arts project rather than the city Sculpture Jam?
I don't think so. I think it was a group of sculptors.
I know the Art Center sponsored it, or at least originally.
They did.
Did they pay them?
I don't think so. I think it was
No, they provided a venue.
and an event. See, I think the more people we have on this list, the better. And it's a list that we're going to be relying upon in the future. And eventually it's not just going to be sculptors, it's going to be painters and woodworkers and all that stuff, that whenever we have the ability to get a call for entries, we're going to be, I think this list is going to be very valuable.
Okay, so I would suggest that we, just a sec, Jeff, that we kind of try to move forward, because we have a few other things also on the agenda. And that we decide, we're going to do the list, we're going to update the list. We agreed. Do we want to wait and see what we get by the 15th, or do we want to extend the outreach and opening at this time? I think we need to decide that.
Yeah. And on that note, I'd like to make a motion that we move the remaining dates on the project timeline 1 month into the future.
I think we better.
I second that motion.
So that would take the opening into July.
Yeah,
Correct. So we're looking at approximately May 15th plus or minus for the submission deadline. A special meeting by us approximately May 20th to determine, and then pushing an installation into early to mid-July, and then pending opening.
May 15th is a Sunday.
well,
Yeah, so that's why I was saying plus or minus. Don't really know
Okay.
the dates yet.
So it would either, we usually use, what was it, April 15th was the Friday. So if we do a Friday, it would be the 13th or the 20th of May.
I say 20th.
Mhm.
I think the more time, the better for now.
Okay, and then for the opening, the weekend would be the 24th.
The opening,
Yeah, of June.
If
that's-
I may, just because of when City Hall is open, so the 20th is a Friday, does it make more sense to have it be the 23rd?
which is,
And then you could just review the sculptures at your normal June 1st meeting.
Okay,
You know, we'll send out the
sounds
packet
good.
as soon as we know what the sculptures are, but so you'll have like a week
Mhm.
and a half to review them before we meet on the 1st.
Mhm.
I think those are good dates, and I would also encourage us as committee members to be really proactive in getting the word out. That,
yeah,
for
yeah.
me, it feels like a really a priority.
Yeah, and I also think that we need to kind of have a feeling, you know, that's great, we'll add a month. Now, what happens if there's a little or very few or not many? I don't think we can just keep extending it. I think at some point we need to say, okay, let's do the opening and just move on to other projects and look at, you know, and next year or whenever for the next call for this. Just to think about that.
Yeah, and then I
So-
guess the other piece of it is, are there other ways you want to, rather than doing calls, do you want to do a commission permanent and mix permanent with rotating? And I mean, it's entirely up to this group.
Okay, I just want to reiterate that the idea for the sculpture garden was non-commissioned because there were a lot of sculptures that were just popping up, and we wanted to give those a context and a beautiful location and appreciation. So I would not mix that up with the other.
Mhm.
But Jeff has a proposal to move everything forward a month. So we have a second on that or further discussion?
Barbara seconded that.
Okay,
I guess the question for me now is is it necessary to amend that motion to specific dates?
yes. So Carrie suggested May 28th for the deadline and
23rd.
23rd, sorry.
Sorry, and I know you probably can't see this, but my calendar is here.
Yeah. it says mine up
The
in there.
23rd is a Monday.
Okay.
And then the next June 1st is
Our
your
meeting.
next normal meeting.
Mhm.
So you prefer, it was Fridays that you were preferring, but now you're preferring Monday for the deadline for staff?
Well, City Hall isn't open on
On
Fridays.
Fridays, right.
We work
Okay,
four
got it.
tens, so we're
Yep.
Monday through Thursday. That's what, and plus if people are working on deadlines, weekends are always nice to give them.
Yeah,
Okay, so it would be Monday for the deadline, May 23rd, and June 1st to decide, and then the opening on June 24, was that it?
Thought it was moved to July.
Sorry, you're right.
July 24th is a Sunday.
Okay, so we looked at Saturday, so that would be the 23rd.
And the other date is the installation.
Ah, yes. Okay. So sometime between June 1st and July 23rd for installation. Can we?
Right, and I'd probably put June 8th, because what we can do to get it to council is we can. So normally our draft staff reports are due 2 weeks prior, which will be right after the submission deadline, so at least know how many submissions we got. So I'll be able to put together the draft report, and what we can do is we can just leave the names out until the very last, until you've had your June 1st meeting. And I can ask Mary if it's okay to, either amend. So she would normally put out the packet either the 31st or the 1st. And I can ask her if it's possible to wait until the 1st in the afternoon, and then I can get her that information really quickly after this group meets.
So we could.
I'm trying to say that that's the only way we could get it on the city council agenda for approval the 7th. And then you'd have from the 8th until the July 20th or so to install them.
So I think we don't necessarily have to select an installation date at this moment. However, if we're going to resend the call out, then we will resend it with the this new schedule if we pass it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Are we okay with having the TBA on the installation and just have those other 3 dates set?
I just have one question on the modification to the CFA submission deadline, and that is if it's going to be a week before we get those the call sent out with the revisions, then should we be adding a week then to our proposed deadline?
I need to get for public notification procedures, we need to get the packet out to the committee by that Thursday, the 26th. So I have to put it into a public, compile all of the sculptures and get it to the committee. So a week would be Memorial Day and not 72 hours before the meeting, which is required by state law.
Okay.
So where does that put us for the deadline to submit?
Well, if the deadline is the end of the day on the 23rd, then the packet would come out on the 26th, 2 or 3 days later. So I would move it to the 24th, but please don't move it any further because staff has to put all of this information together for you. And I need a little time to do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 24th is the latest, you're saying, that will work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How's that, Jeff?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
I mean,
Okay.
let's vote.
Can we vote? Good. Okay.
Sorry, what did we end up with for the
Yes, so-
installation date?
Not the installation. I think it's the deadline to submit. Is that right?
So
Okay,
the
did
dates we
come up with an
have-
Installation date?
the dates we have right now that we'd be voting on are deadline moved to May 24. Deciding on the submissions, June 1st meeting. Opening, July 23rd. Installation to be announced.
Okay,
So somewhere in between, and I can write it up to say June 13th through July, or June to July to be determined.
I mean, is there some sense of how far in advance of the opening we want to do the installation?
For this one, what we had now, it was pretty close. But I think we have a better idea as a little later.
Okay,
Okay, so I so amend my motion to include those dates stated by Margie and Carrie.
And one other element, which is updating the call. I can do that. Let's see.
Hey,
Jeff-
Margie,
Yeah.
I think I need to update the call, since I
Okay.
have the last version that went out, then last
Okay.
time it came to me, a bunch
Fine.
of stuff was out of order, just software differences or
Okay.
something, I think.
Okay.
And then you could send it to us, Carrie, and we can send it to our, to the.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I will do that, actually right now, since it's only changing a couple dates. So.
Oh, great, thanks.
Okay, but, and including the comment about emphasizing the simplicity and the insurance.
I think that should not be included in the call. I think that should be included in the email sending it out. I think we need to keep the call as it is, more or less, other
Okay.
than the dates.
Okay,
And just the fact that we've extended it
okay.
in that email.
So composing the email. Carrie, do you need to do that, or should Jeff and I do that?
Oh, Carrie said she has the latest version.
No, composing the email.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, if one of you can do the email, that'd be great, and send it out like last time with whatever the list is.
That'll be okay for Jeff and I, because we did that.
Sure,
previously.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay,
Thank
Okay,
you.
Jeff?
Three of you.
okay,
Yeah, Margie, I'll await your contact and then I'll act on that.
okay.
Okay.
All right, can we vote on this? Good. So do we need to read it, or we got it? We got it, yeah? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Passed.
Excellent, all right.
Well done. Okay,
And I will put in July 23rd for
Mhm.
the opening. I do want to check with our mayor to make sure he's available for that. But I think it already says date subject to revision, so I'll just put it in us so they have some sense of the time frame and other, like we did last time.
okay. And also, I just had one other thing, which was, can we put together a subcommittee to work on open ceremony logistics?
Yeah, I'll be happy to work on that.
Okay. We don't have Lars here, but anybody have any nominations for the subcommittee?
Come on.
Okay, I'll work with Barbara on it.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, all right, excellent. Next item on the agenda is library sculpture dedication ceremony logistics. Again, we need a subcommittee.
Well, I'll be happy to work on that because I already worked with the library on the forum room exhibits, and I'm involved with Matthew a lot, so.
Okay, one other person.
I nominate Lars.
Thank you. What, you nominate?
Worth.
Do we have a date? Oh, do we have a date though?
No,
Okay, so that's gonna be, okay. Because I saw Matthew yesterday and he reminded me it was on the agenda today, so it's on his radar again.
yeah. So let's just get the other person for the subcommittee, then we can pick a date.
Well, that's why we have to include Matthew, I think, with the picking the date, because,
Carrie said she had already done
Oh,
that.
I've contacted Michael McGinnis. I have not talked with the library yet, so you're right, that does. Yeah.
did Michael have any ideas, Carrie?
He said he is absolutely available and will make himself available as long as it's not a Tuesday or Thursday, because that's when he teaches.
Okay, hold on. No Tuesday or Thursday. Okay.
So, my idea is to have the subcommittee choose a date, or do we need to go through, I mean, can we do this by email or not really?
Oh, I think we can.
Okay, good.
So are we
Okay.
literally suggesting Lars as my co-person here?
Any comment? Robert has nominated him. Jeff, what do you think?
I don't, if I was absent, I don't think I'd want that one pulled on me.
Okay, so could we have Robert or Jeff on that subcommittee?
This is not my forte.
Okay, Jeff?
Come on, Jeff.
Well, I mean, I could do it, but considering I'm just sitting here counting the subcommittees I'm currently working on. So
Okay,
I'm going to withdraw my
I
participation.
can do it by myself.
okay, thank you,
I can't, I
Barbara.
mean, you know, yeah, it's like
Okay, got it. Thank you,
familiar
Barbara.
territory.
However, I am happy to participate in any conversation via email, Barbara. and
Thank
Margie,
you.
know,
Okay.
about it and give you feedback or reflect, et cetera. I'm sure Robert
Okay.
will do the same. So
Okay,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Lars will do the same too, for that matter.
Yeah, it's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be an opening reception. No alcohol, by the way.
outdoors,
It doesn't matter if it's a library.
okay.
Yeah.
I recommend outdoors.
Well, there isn't much outdoors except for that plaza where the fountain is.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea. Thank you. Outdoors.
Okay, so Barbara will email us with a proposed date and
Mhm. And then how are we gonna pay for it?
So
I mean, we'll have-
we do have public art budget in this year's budget for opening ceremonies, that kind of thing.
Okay,
So
And I need to check what the budget is, but I think it's,
well,
you and I can coordinate on that. I think it's, since we're not doing the sculpture garden in this fiscal year,
Oh,
which I
'cause-
also had, I think, some
Ah.
money identified for. So let me check the budget, where we're at budget wise. And I can
Oh,
let
good.
you know where we're at.
okay, great, thank you.
And I don't know if this group has any sense or recommendations, because.
You mean for an amount that it might cost?
Yeah, I like Robert, this is not my forte at all.
Well, it is, yeah, that's why I can do it, I think, because I've done it for so long, but hopefully the library graphic designer can do a poster for us.
and you might have someone on the library be in a subcommittee. with
Yeah,
you.
I
Great.
think,
Yes, and you start by going through Matthew. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Very
but
very
I mean, the library folks, there's some people who are really good at putting together programs, so.
They are,
Yeah, they've been doing it a lot.
very
Good.
kind-hearted too.
Well, and just so you know, Barbara, and for those of you, I guess Margie and Lars are the only folks who were here when we did that call. They did a great job. We had the maquettes in the
Yeah.
library and we got a lot of comments on the sculpture. So they were very involved with that and it was very exciting. So,
Yeah,
I think
So
that- yeah.
I went around, and including the library, to a couple different places. This was about several weeks ago, with a flyer I had created for the community sculpture garden. And I often got responses like, "Oh, well, I'll give it to our so-and-so and we'll see whether, I don't know if we can publicize it or not." And that Carrie just saying what a great venue the library is for getting the word out. So I'm wondering if we can ask them in other places also to please help us with this and have an actual poster. I got prints, but there's nothing that's really good to post on the wall. I know this is going back, but it is about the library.
what do you mean there's nothing good to post on the wall?
What I received, not something that you could put in the window and someone would.
I see, yeah.
I thought it would be, and in fact, and Carrie said, "Well, you want one page or two?" I said, "Well, just on one page," and then.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Single pages. So
So
we need Yeah, we need a flyer and we need people to contact venues to say, please help us.
So you're saying that the call to the artist, which is now has a deadline of May 24th, needs a poster so that we can, as committee members, be armed with that and take it places and ask them to put it in their windows, et cetera.
Yes, that was
That's
my
a great idea. The library, however, won't do that for us. I know that because they only do the library stuff. But if you, do you have the ability to design a poster on one page yourself?
I did one. I sent it to everyone
I don't remember it.
a long time. I can resend it. It's, I mean, it's not flashy, but it is one page and it is fairly.
What program did you use to create it?
I have Pages, but then I make a PFD.
PDF?
Yeah,
Can you put it in
PDF.
Microsoft Word? Can you? I don't have Pages. I have a layout.
No. So from Pages, I make a PDF, but I can transfer it to Word and then put.
Could I work on that with you, Margie?
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay.
And then maybe we can also talk about somehow contacting, I mean, if the library did maquettes and publicize the commission one.
Well,
they
they'll
can-
publish it. I mean, they'll publicize it. They just won't, I don't think, make a poster for an outside entity.
No, not make a poster, but if we give them one.
Oh, yeah,
it
they'll
won't just get lost, which is what happened when I went around a few weeks ago. People went to the art gallery, I went to the library and so on, and people went, oh.
I just wanted to ask a question in terms of the library piece opening and all openings in general, and anyone who's familiar with the city newsletter. Do they automatically put dates of upcoming events, et cetera, at the very top of the newsletter? Does that take priority, or do people have to scroll way down to eventually find those things? Because in my opinion, they should be at the very top. They should remain there until those events take place. And I think that would help all readers.
Yeah, good idea. How is it redesigned the whole city newsletter, Carrie?
I am not in charge of the city newsletter. That is.
I think it's a
not
great
my
idea,
department.
Jeff. I wasn't meaning to be, facetious, but it's a great idea. But there's another can of worms getting the city to.
Okay,
So I know, like for instance, the Climate Action Committee is putting and I know they have more people than this group, but they're putting together an electronic climate newsletter, and they want to do that on a monthly basis, but they're doing that themselves and simply using the city. We have a contact list for climate issues to distribute that through constant contact, but they're doing that entirely themselves, layout and everything.
in order to move things forward, can we put that on the agenda for our next meeting to have some time to talk about possible recommendations to the city for the newsletter, a newsletter ourselves, and posting and PR?
Good idea.
Just move that and then go forward. So we have a few more things on the agenda. The next one on the agenda is a brief discussion of the Brown Act so that we clarify. And I sent Carrie an email with some of the questions I'd come up with about it. So I can just read some of my questions and maybe other people have them, but basically it's this. Excuse me. As we all know, there's a lot of things that the staff has to do, and they're dealing with a lot. They have shortages, and I understand in terms of staffing and so on. So in order to be as effective as we like and are used to, and move things and move forward, I think it would be helpful to clarify how we can do this in between meetings so that we are in compliance but we know how we can communicate and what we can do. I know we can't make decisions about business. However, beyond that, there's a lot of things that to me are not clear. And maybe some of you are very, very clear. I don't know. Carrie sent us the Brown Act. I went through it and then I had questions. So shall I mention a few of them? Does anybody else have something they want to jump in with?
Well,
Well,
Huh?
in my mind, just to simplify, you're talking about if it's a potential item that the committee would have to vote on, that is not something more than two members can discuss outside of a meeting.
That's the fundamental.
That's the basic premise, Jeff. That's correct. If it's something that the group has already made a decision on, or it's not something that you're going to be making a decision on, it's simply a discussion. I mean, that's a little tricky. For this group, it's probably easier because if it's about, information sharing about what other groups are doing in the county, that is not committee business.
But for instance, I would like us to have a connection with ArtStart. If I wanted to communicate with other members about that, that's something that the committee would be doing, but it's also sharing information. Or if someone gets information that is helpful, can they share that? It says in the thing, a minority can discuss policy privately. The minority, which means even one less than everybody, without violating the Brown Act. And then it says, avoid online communication with fellow members on matters that will be discussed and voted on. Now, does it need to have both those qualifications? Will be and will be voted on? And how would we know? Always. So to me, there's a lot of gray area, and I want us to be able to communicate effectively and be clear.
and not break the law. Literally.
Yes, thank you.
Because sure, I mean, if we were in a coffee shop and somebody was overhearing a conversation then that had something to do with the city, that could jeopardize the effect. Yeah.
Right, so let me take a couple of examples. Maybe it's hard to do theoretical and make sure that folks understand it. So Margie, you just mentioned wanting this group, which is a city sponsored group, to engage with ArtStart. So that is something that the committee would generally want to decide whether they want to engage with a nonprofit. It's not something that you could unilaterally decide and then just start emailing everybody about. So in that case, you could discuss it with one other member, because that's the minority. Hey, hey Barbara, do you think this is a good idea? What do you know about ArtStart? What do you think? What are the ways that you could engage? You can have those conversations with one person, but then it needs to be discussed here, agendized and discussed here. And you can't go talk to every single person individually about it and then put it on an agenda, because that's basically making a backroom decision. And why have a public meeting to make that decision? Because you've already made it, outside of the meeting.
So a minority, if we have a 5, a minority would be
Is 2.
2 or 3.
2.
Correct? 2.
3 is a majority.
Okay.
3 is
got
more
it.
than 2.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then if a member wanted to have communication with an organization to see if they were interested or how they might be interested
Mhm.
individually. So for instance, I did speak with ArtStart to tell them about the CSG call, and they were interested in connecting with us. So we talked a little bit briefly about that. I assume that was okay.
Absolutely. You're not making a unilateral decision or involving more than two members of the committee in that discussion. And in fact, what you did was absolutely appropriate, Margie, by asking me to agendize it so you could bring it and discuss it introduce the idea to the larger group.
And what about getting information, just information about anything that relates to business or that doesn't, from another committee member? So for instance, Robert was communicating with the Art Center, but I hadn't heard. And I asked you, and then you were so busy, I didn't hear. And this often happens. And I understand you're very, very busy. You're doing an immense amount of stuff. how can we, so eventually, I did ask him. And I felt that, you know, as the chair
Yeah,
and
I think,
someone involved in this project, I could ask him what was happening just to get the information.
So in that case, it's a decision that has already been done by the committee. And this is where it can get gray very quickly. So, and I am not the Brown Act expert. I asked the city attorney questions. And so Margie, like you sent me the questions just before this meeting, and I did respond to you and said, hey, you know, some of these I'm going to have to go over this with the city attorney. I'm not going to be able to answer today. But in that case, asking Robert was probably fine, because the decision the decision and the direction to put these signage in that location and to have Robert contact them was already made. So the decision is sort of it's a past decision, and that decision isn't coming before the committee any longer, if that makes sense. If it's something that you still have to discuss and make a decision on, then that's not appropriate.
Even though there are only two of us involved.
Well, actually, in that case, it would be okay. I was thinking you were on the signage subcommittee, so that but yes, in that case, because it's on a minority, it would also be okay.
Yeah. Thanks,
So
Robert.
Marty contacting me and me contacting her were,
Yeah,
you know,
that is fine.
under the two limits, so that's should be fine.
Right now, yeah. So the other, you're correct, Robert. And the other example would be if Jeff and Lars are working on the signage for the sculpture pads, for you to contact them. It'd be more appropriate to go through me at that point, because that's 3 people. I know council, the way council handles this, because they also have 5 people, and so they're limited and to 2 people. They have a number of subcommittees as well, as you probably know. They will agendize, and this is something I can do for sure, subcommittee updates on their meetings. And then that's agendized, and each of the subcommittees can update the larger body. Our planning commission does this as well. They have 2 or 3 they have 2 or 3 subcommittees that they are either liaisons to, or that are subcommittees of the larger group.
Okay, so just let me say that this was something that we were going to try to do before, in between the 2 meetings, rather than agendize it and then take another month. So some of it is just, and I've had members of the PAC complain to me about how frustrated they are, but that things move slowly. So I'm trying to help us move in an efficient way. And that I do, Carrie, I didn't just get in touch with you before the meeting. This was weeks. And Mike and I feel that, you know, you're doing everything you can. And I just want us to work well, to support and not to overload you unnecessarily. So that's
sure. Yeah. I mean, I have no desire to be the go-between. There are certain situations where we have to be, though, just that's noted. It's and that is part of why government moves slowly sometimes.
okay. So can I say ask please everyone to look at the Brown Act and see if you have any other questions, and maybe we can talk about it again at another time, just so we can really be clear and know how we can function well. And any ideas that other people have, I'd really appreciate. Is that okay?
Right. And Margie, I was referring to the questions you sent me this morning. I will send those to the city attorney. Yeah, that's what I was saying. A whole bunch of questions, a few minutes before the meeting. I think I tried to answer them as best I could now, but there are a couple in terms of, like signage. If it's at what point does it's a decision by the committee versus not. And some of those I know are gray areas, like the opening ceremony, logistics for the library. If there's a date, does that really need to come through me, or can it be emailed directly as, hey, does this date work for everybody, kind of a thing.
Okay.
How much of is that a Brown Act violation or not to do something like that? So Barbara could send that out and coordinate that, or does she need to send it to me to send out to folks? And so I'll talk with Larry and our city clerk about that.
Okay, so we have a few more minutes, and we have a number of other things that are on the agenda, which we probably would then need to move forward with. And just to say, refresh what it is. So we need to get the planning department report. And also we were going to talk about working with non-member associates or assistants on subcommittees. And there were a couple other things on the discussion, which was connecting with Art Start, discussing the interest of indoor art display at the library, and so on. And also talking about the new sculpture call for the commissioned art. So my suggestion is, how much time do you need? We have 4 minutes for planning department report.
I can be real brief and do it right now. Because I can do as much or as little as you all like. I think the areas of interest, the Climate Action Committee is continuing to work on the Upcycle Art project. That committee and the Zero Waste Committee have discussed merging into one committee, merging the Zero Waste and the Climate Action Committee. And that is going to council on the 19th. And that would still be stopped by the planning department. The Zero Waste was by engineering, but that would basically go away. But that group is working on the Upcycle Art project. If you'd like a formal update, I can put that on a future agenda. And then other items of interest, the city last night approved the first reading to ban new fossil fuel gasoline stations in the city. They also heard a police department audit, and the police department is pretty much done with the 150 something recommendations for improvements over there. Some of that's training and whatnot. And I think that's about it for me.
Any update on Ned's sculpture?
Yes, so I did complete and executed the contract with Miller Pacific, the engineering firm that needs to do the soil report for them. And so that is completed, as is the amendment for the specific Ned Con work. I have contacted Ned and let him know that. The engineering firm is currently finalizing their encroachment permit for Public Works to do the work, and then they are ready to schedule it whenever that's complete. So that's working with the Public Works Department.
I'm sorry, any updates as well on the AmeriCorps Trail timeline?
That is in the engineering department's hand. I have finished all of the easement language, the conservation easement language with ag and open space folks, and that went to their board along with the funding allocations the beginning of May, or sorry, the beginning of March. So that is completed, and I think engineering is they're working with the consulting engineering firm who had put together the drawings to get some final documentation so they can release that for bid, but we are hoping to get that out to bid and done this year.
Okay, so that's it. Can we move forward the items that we didn't cover to our next agenda?
Yes.
Okay, anything else anyone wants to add to the agenda for next meeting? Barbara?
You're muted. Muted.
To talk about the identification of all the other sculptures that are within the city limits. I mentioned the door in the plaza. There's no idea about the artist or the date or the title or any of that stuff. I just think it'd be nice if outdoor public sculpture had some signage to let the public know what it is.
Okay, anything else for the agenda? All right. So that's it for our time. Thank you,
Okay, and this will
everyone.
not be, so this will not be April 20th, since that was the special
Oh,
meeting to
right.
review the sculptures. And that's not been moved. So this would be your normal meeting, which is May 4th.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're not meeting on the 20th. That's good. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yep.
So motion to adjourn. Robert, second,
A second.
second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody.
See
Thanks,
you.
everybody.